specifically downloaded. So I'll just wrap up and talk to you a little bit about these two. So we own our own independent carrier grade network. So the whole network is run on ribbon SBCs. They are session border controllers, so they basically direct your voice traffic around the network. They were first be approved by Microsoft for direct routing. So owning our own network basically means that we can port numbers in, so your customers' numbers into our network. We can provide you with new numbers, and then we can do things like cover your call rates, so you get a fixed service charge each month instead of having fluctuating call rates. As a business, we've won multiple awards. We're part of the Cloud Comms Alliance and ICSPA, it's now known as the Comms Council. So we won awards with them. It just basically means that we're complying with the ever-changing rules and regulations of the comms world. So we have got what we believe to be the most advanced infrastructure in the UK. So SBCs can be hosted in a virtual instance. So we have that now integrated throughout our whole network. So it is basically it's a really cutting-edge way to take a network to market for customers and channel partners. We do have a presentation going on later on today about Teams direct routing automation. So we do provide a customer portal, partner portal, for all the channel partners that we've got, and you can do full automation within that. And one of my colleagues, Tyler's going to be going through that later on. I think it's 12 this presentation. So yeah, so that's just a screenshot of Fuse2's topology. So this is how our network sets up. I think I mentioned to you before about the ribbon SBCs being the first to be approved by Teams for direct routing. So they are all integrated into our core network. We host them in our own data center presences, in which you can see obviously there we've got started off in 2 foundation data center spaces in Manchester, and then we branched out to London. The London data center presence that we have takes on net with Microsoft. So that's like a really clean and resilient way to take voice traffic to market for new customers. And that's through our links peer exchange. So it does take us on net with Microsoft. We address global functionality. As you can see there, we address sort of each hemisphere of the globe with a SIP presence in Singapore, presence in the US, and then another central one in Amsterdam. That just basically means we have a global footprint for our network, so it improves again on things like latency, packet loss, jitter. It's also a point terminal, a good quality call. So you can see again relevant to the sort of resilience in the network, the tier 1 interconnects that we've got there on the left-hand side, TalkTalk, Hikes, Reach, Timico. So they all have hardline failovers between. That just basically means that if there's a natural disaster at any one of those locations, your voice traffic will seamlessly transfer over to another one of the tier 1 interconnects. The whole network, as you would expect, is automated, but we do have an in-house network operating centre, and that's based in the north, in Bolton. So it just gives you guys a bit of reassurance that the whole network is being monitored by people. It's not just sort of automated network, it's just left to run. So all the functionality that we've got within the network shows the sort of scale of investment that the directors have made into setting up the network. So we've got a real strong channel partnership, a strong channel base, and they trust and benefit from that year on year. So one of the solutions that we offer from the network is of course Teams direct routing. So there's 2 main ways to take Microsoft Teams to market for your customers. One of them is calling plans, so that's Microsoft's own offering, and the other one is Teams direct routing. So the Microsoft offering with calling plans is a very much pay-per-user or pay-per-seat pricing structure. So it does become quite cost-effective, not very effective cost-wise when you're talking to bigger clients, because you just literally have to pay for every agent that wants to use the calling plans. The other aspect of Microsoft's offering is that it is obviously you get the Microsoft support. We refer to that support as being reactive rather than proactive, so there's a log a ticket, get an answer. Our support is obviously proactive support, so we do have the network operating centre, and we proactively monitor that network daily. So the key aspect of the direct routing solution and the offering from Fuse 2 is that it's very scalable. The pricing structure that we offer is based on current calls, so or channels, whatever you want to refer to it as. So that is just basically the number of inbound and outbound calls that you can be making at any one time. So when you're talking to bigger clients, 100, 20, however big you want to go, it does become a lot more cost effective to just have to pay for what you need, basically. So some deployments that we've been successful in is in education. Obviously, direct routing over the past 2 years specifically with lockdowns and fuel crises and all sorts of different stuff going on there. The sort of need for collaboration has never been higher. So, we have seen a huge uplift in inquiries for things like Teams direct routing and general communications and on-the-go collaboration. So, yeah, the specific sector we've seen a lot of success in is in education. So, not only because you get a discount in this sector, but basically a great example that we've had of education is in art schools. So art schools had about 40 different sites, 4,000 direct dials that were ported into our network. We assigned a raft more with prefixes that they wanted. And the sort of best thing for those guys was that it brought all the sites on under one 365 tenancy, so it was very manageable for them. It's sort of easily accessible, easy to monitor, and it's all in their own instance as well. So it's a really clean, manageable solution for multiple site environments. Some of the deployments we've been successful in on a global scale. As I mentioned, we do have a global footprint and a global reach. So that basically means that we do have agreements in place with over 200 different telecoms companies that bring their network into ours. So that does mean that we can do things like port international numbers, Belgian numbers, German numbers into our network. We can also provide new ones as well. Obviously, owning a global network means we can facilitate global SIP trunks. So, if you want to do something called in-country termination, in-country breakout, that will basically act like the call is being generated in the country that you want. That will save you on international call charges. So it's a cost-saving exercise, and it's also beneficial for the clarity of the call as well. Obviously, similarly with all the other deployments, this can be held under one manageable 365 tenancy. So, working hand in hand with the global network that we offer, we have done extensive research into overlay functionality, specifically for Teams. And as part of that research, we do genuinely believe that there's no better platform than Anywhere 365. So I will let you decide that for yourself and I'll pass over to my colleague Ben in a minute. But Anywhere 365 is an enterprise-grade contact centre and call centre solution. It's housed in customer Sharepoint. Fuse 2 are a trusted and approved partner with Anywhere 365. So it basically means that we can provide direct route as a service and then overlay the Anywhere platform. So yeah, they were the first contact centre to be approved by Microsoft and do still remain to this day to have one of the strongest global footprints I've seen in the market. So yeah, it's a really strong product, and I'll call upon Ben to give you a bit of a demo and show you how it works and talk to you a bit about it.
Thank you very much, Max, and good morning to you all. It's got into the pretty good today, so I'll run it as I think as beneficial as any of you guys can find. So if there's anything that you are hoping to get out of today's session, then please just let me know in the way of Anywhere 365 contacts. And I think that introduction as to how Fuse to operate and what they can offer in the way of direct route was excellent. And the introduction, also thank you Matt. So I'm going to just start with, what we've got, about 20 or so minutes. Start with a few slides just to give you a bit of introduction and background into who Anywhere 365 are and how we operate. We're going to do a demonstration. I'll show you some core parts of the platform, and as I say, thinking originally, packed out, seems to be just save the questions, all the questions at the end, but guys, as I say, if there is, as much you guys can get out of this as possible, just stop me as we go, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have. So just to start off with, it's worth pointing out, if you haven't come across Anywhere 365 before, we are a Microsoft-only contact centre. So we're one of the very few, as Max has already mentioned, to be officially certified with Microsoft as part of their program, which is to give customers that assurance that the product you're looking at is going to deliver in the level of quality and reliability you'd expect from a Microsoft solution. We have been in space for a long time, so 10, 11, 12 years now, specifically in managing workflows for Microsoft technology. And that's one of the reasons why we've carved out quite a position of trust within the market. The product itself, as I say, just to finish off on that point, is that we're built around Office 365. So what we do is have customers to receive return on investment by leveraging their Office 365 environment. So you'll see how we do that shortly when we get into the demonstration. The product itself has got, there's over 5,000 customers that are using the solution. The majority of those are enterprise organisations. They have also close to 1,000 engineers, so we only work through our channel partners. We have a very strong, close relationship with Fuse2, and there are a number of customers that we can reference if that is useful as part of decision making. So we'll look at, firstly, something that I will point out that is quite important that differentiates us with the market, is that we have a licensing model that we call CPaaS, which is Contact Center Platform as a Service. Effectively means that you can license unlimited. If you speak to vendors, they will say that you need to work on a per user per month basis, and we can do that. The smaller the numbers, it makes more sense. However, the statement here, everybody is a contact center, relates to the fact that we can start to incorporate some of the back office functions into the tools that we will have a look at within the product shortly. Things like call recording is an easy example, reporting for back office functions, being part of routing logic, and just getting some more insight and information given that we're now not situated in an office. There's a few logos, so I'm sure we're going to recognise some of these guys. We get mentioned by Gartner and every report as a leader in the space, and we can move a little bit closer to home, just a handful of customers that would have deployed Anywhere 365 and allowed their team's environment in the last couple of months. So let's get into products, just have a look at things plumbed together. So this is just a visual of how the flow typically would look. It's going to make more sense when we get into the demonstration itself. But this gives you an idea of three core components. So in a Teams world, the application itself is managed for a subscription basis from our Dialogue Cloud, is what we call it, which is an application hosted in Azure that provides Anywhere 365 services. You have Sharepoint, so what we do is we provide a template that sits in your own Sharepoint environment, and that is where we manage that communication flow. And we also have the SQL environment, which is the database, so where all the CDR reports and management information would be held. Important thing to note about that infrastructure is that it's all in your own environment, so we only see data as transit data. It comes to us, we cache it every 10 seconds, it's then placed back in your own environment. So from a data sovereignty, customers that want to make sure that where data travels, that tends to be a massive positive. As I say, everything's in their own control, in their own environment. A few different options in terms of managing the call flow. I think a lot of us will be used to skills-based routing most commonly, but things like machine learning, CRM, the introduction into the call flows themselves is something we see more and more. As we move across, I think in conversations that I have with customers, it tends to, a lot of the time, start to introduce some of the more advanced technologies that can be procured through a customer's Office 365 subscription. Things like sentiment analysis, automation. That is all possible, as I say, through your 365 subscription and to be overlaid into the contact centre. Dialogue Studio, I don't think we're going to have enough time to look at Dialogue Studio in loads of detail today, but that is a low-code, no-code environment that allows you to drag and drop nodes, configure flows for things like automation, and then finally Power BI, which is what we use for our reporting and recording. Just a couple of last parts to run through. This I think is useful just from an agent perspective. Clearly Teams has taken up more and more of the desktop, so we have a native application that is embedded in Teams that will provide all that contact centre functionality. You can integrate, as I mentioned already, into CRM for knowledge workers and how to spend a lot of time in those systems. And if needs be, if you really want to, you can just have it set on the web browser. Few components we're going to look at within the session now. Firstly, as I say, web agent for Teams. So we'll have a look at what that agent application can do and the benefit of sitting out within Teams itself. Wallboards, just part and parcel with the product. And a few other insight tools. A snap I'll show you as to why we provide an application with those type of features. And then integration with CRM reports we touched on. So we'll have a look at what that does in practice. So that's it for slides. I'll get into the demonstration now and show you how it works. So firstly, as I said, we're going to start with the web agent. A couple of parts just to point out. So I'm sure we'll all recognise the Teams client. Got our normal tabs here, the tray on the left-hand side, and in addition we've got the web agent, so that installed application that will provide function features that we're going to have a look at now. We've got firstly at the top left dial pad. If we need to make any outbound calls, excellent, we can leverage an alternate call ID. I think a lot of agents making calls from the contact centre won't want their DDI to be shown if the customer misses the call. So we've got a backup one now to make sure I brought 3 HDMI cables today, so we won't go without. Cool, so secondly we can compose chat now, that's part of the new bundle update. Previously we could only respond to incoming emails, SMS messages, now we can compose new, initiate that communication from the web agent. We can integrate with Outlook so we can see what's happening in the calendar, and we've also got, as you can see here, that presence information. So if we go away within our web agent in Teams, you'll see they, through what we call the Graph API, which is what third-party vendors such as us use to integrate with Teams, we can see the presence. So we're able to replicate what happens within Teams. But we may not want to just go away from our desk. We may also want to show as a lump. So we can input enhanced reason codes to give supervisors and other management some more information as to where our team are and what they're doing. So just as a bit of context to that, and I'm jumping forward slightly here, but in the snapper you can see here, if we go into our agents view, we can see that Ben, he's been on lunch for 10 seconds, he's probably going to be another hour or 2 before he gets back to manage some of these incoming calls. Just in this section here, we can see a drop down that gives us that information we've seen already in terms of reason codes, but we can also manage our contact centres and profiles as an agent. So we may decide that we need to be part of multiple contact centres, and that is all visible within this section. So as part of configuration, the templates that we provide in Sharepoint are relative to each contact centre. In the morning, as an agent, I can see I'm part of multiple contact centres within this list. I can choose to log in and log out if I need to. Or if I'm a formal agent, I'm logged in because that is my role and I need to stay logged in that contact centre and be part of that routing configuration. So let's get called in and see what the experience would be for an agent as the call comes into the contact centre. The first thing we're going to see, as you'll notice, is my mobile number is in the queue. So I'm the only agent with the skill of sales configured to my name. So I'm going to press 1 and what you see. The call's now being routed, and I'll talk about the layers of routing in just a moment. Cool. So we've got a Teams call being presented to us, as I'm sure we'll recognise that toast is being populated. But before we answer that call as an agent, we've we've got a lot of things happening within this web agent client. So let's answer the call in Teams. We've answered, we now don't need to use that Teams window at all. So on the left hand side, what we've got here, personal information. We've done a dip in the database, we've recognised that number, we've populated the information. As an agent, I can see that's Benwood, say when it's calling. I can have a look at the queue and see that he was waiting 3 seconds, and I can probably get a feel for the sentiment of this call. We've got some previous interactions. I can see who Ben has spoken to over the last couple of days. I can see if there's been any missed calls and interactions that I need to be aware of. We've also then got information saying this call's being recorded and details around the contact centre, the skill that's been chosen. Importantly, some remote call control capability. So if we need to manage the call, then we can do that directly from this web agent. So we could put the call on hold, we could invite more people, mute, if we need to transfer, we can do that either to a contact or even to a skill, but we use the same method of routing as an inbound call into the contact centre. When we're finished, we can end the call, but before we do that, just to also point out, as part of that integration, if we are integrated via CRM or just via SQL, we can also see any open cases. And during the call, something quite important, I think, to a lot of customers nowadays, is being able to classify what are they calling about specifically within that department, so we can get some more information within reporting to understand what that looks like. So we can classify during. You'll notice if I now hang the call up. We're in a post-call quality monitor, which is optional, and as you see here, we would have had some wrap-up time just finished. We've got the option now to classify that. That gives us some options, which are all fully configurable. As you'll see in a moment, we can say that's been handled, we're now ready for the next dialogue. There's a web chat in the queue. This is a full omni-channel experience, so everything will show in this queue. You've got emails, web chats, SMS, etc. We're going to see that, and we can manage the queue appropriately as an agent. So that is, and sorry for moving quite quickly, I'm conscious of time. Normally I spend an hour and a half demonstrating this. I've got 20 minutes. So if there's things you want me to slow down or cover, then please just, as I say, let me know I'm happy to do that. But just in the last, we've got till 22. That's cool. Okay, well, I'm just going to cover a few. Is there anything that you guys have come here, travelled halfway along the country to see specifically?
You mentioned ITS products.
Yep. ServiceNow. We've got an outbox connected for ServiceNow. Yeah. Yeah, we could do. I've done some stuff with ConnectWise through Dialogue Studio in the past. I'll show you. Yeah, I can do that in a few minutes. So first, just in relation to your question, we have a product called Dialogue Studio. Dialogue Studio is a low-code, no-code environment. If you've come across IBM Node-RED before, it's built on IBM Node-RED, which is basically what we're looking at here. We have our own proprietary nodes, so these nodes can be dragged and dropped into this canvas, and you can start to create a flow. You can look at different APIs and databases, and that's where an integration with ConnectWise. I think we've got 2 or 3 customers that are using Dialogue Studio specifically for ConnectWise. Autotask is another example of a number of customers we talk to that want to see an integration with that system. So a good example, and this is what I mentioned earlier, automation. Being able to configure this might look complicated, but actually it's not. It's actually just a service that, as you can see, starts with that incoming call. So if I now make a call into the contact centre, I've turned the Dialogue Studio on, but although this isn't necessarily exactly the integration we talk about, something like ConnectWise, again, what you could imagine doing within this flow is integrate or having a node that would be hooked to ConnectWise, database to ConnectWise, and have that API, so that when that call comes in, and we route it the same way as we do to an agent as part of our Sharepoint configuration, we're then looking at this piece here to say, right, populate that information if we've got a match with it, and then in the same way. The only difference is that with things like Dynamics, ServiceNow, Salesforce, we have a connector that allows you to sit the web agent, we looked at when we go in Teams, in that ITSM. With this, it would be be slightly different because you wouldn't have that web agent application set, and then you'd have the same functionality in terms of a pop if we get a match within the database. So this is just an idea of something that you can do with Dialog Studio.
Hello, this is Computer Center. How can we help you today?
Do you have any parking?
We have parking facility on site and open from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Parking is chargeable. Anything else we can help you with?
I'd like to buy your product.
It looks like you need to speak today. I'll find someone for you now. One moment, please. Your call will be answered by the next person.
You hopefully get the idea is that we can manage a lot of that engagement with a customer before having to route to an agent. When it gets exhausted, the same way we've seen here, we can get that set through. I think I'm probably going to wrap up in just a moment. A couple of things that just, I think we can appreciate due to time restrictions not had a look at. This is just a really quick look. So Sharepoint, this is the type of template from day one. You sit into that customer's environment. So this is where we manage all the configuration. It's very simple, very straightforward to go about configuring agents, skills, your IVR. The nice thing is that given we're built around the Microsoft ecosystem, you can start to leverage some of those applications, such as Power Apps, to provide to some of the team members within the business that don't necessarily need access to all that information. We've got a few options in terms of wallboards, so we can see what's happening at any given time. There is an application called a Snapper, as we looked at just a moment ago, that gives us, I think, a lot of insight into what's happening in real time within the contact centre, so we can see some key metrics here. We can see that information on our agent presence. We can also even go about managing some advanced call control capabilities, things like whispering, things like listening in, and being able to call bars during calls. So using Teams for what it is very good at, which is collaboration, dropping a message to someone and saying, I'm stuck, can you help? Jump into this, have a look at the connected calls, and being able to go in and manage those advanced call controls. And the last thing that I would have run through with you guys also today is our report. So we provide, in very much the same way as we do within SharePoint, a template. So this template here is what you'd see from day one within, again, your own Power BI environment. So I'd say for 80-90% of customers, this is more than sufficient in terms of the information we can pull from the contact centre and surface into quite a nice report that gives you, as I say, quite a breakdown in terms of the level of detail we can pull. So just a couple of examples. UCC stands for Unified Contact Centre, so we can go into specific reports and have a look at how busy it is based on the filters that we've input, and just a final look at that level of detail. We've got all of the information here with reference IDs. I know we've got some call recording capability in the crowd, which is awesome, but we've also got a call recording as part of that. As a license, you get a call recording, 256-base encryption, and importantly, stored in the customer SharePoint environment. So they manage all of the storage and retention. You obviously get quite a lot of storage with SharePoint anyway, but again, all within that customer control. So this is an insight to an interaction end-to-end, and if there is any recordings, we'd have a link there. We have permissions. Given that it's using Office 365, all the roles and responsibilities are already in place, so it makes life a bit easier from a deployment and security perspective. I'm going to stop talking, because if I continue, we'll be here until about 11 o'clock. I hope that's been useful. If there's anything that comes from the session in terms of questions or any further discussion you'd like to have, please just give Max a shout. He's awesome and we'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's it, really. Thanks very much, Ben, for going through that. I think we're on stand 19 in the exhibition hall, so if you guys want to come and see us, ask any questions, please feel free. And that's it. Nice to see you all here. Busy stage. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, all.